performance is the only thing that matters. And I've talked to like production designers and DPs about this because I think that's true. I think that you can have the best cinematography that's ever been committed to film, and if the performances are shit, it doesn't matter. You did it for nothing. Yeah, that's fucking right.
So Anna, brilliant transition into becoming a director.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. That's so kind. Thank you so much for being here, you guys. Round of applause for yourselves. You left the house.
So I want to start with the idea for you and the bravery to transition into directing. How did it happen?
So I was attached to the movie for about 2 years as an actor, and we all know the story of the movie that's just sort of like can't get its act together. The financing is like coming in, going out, whatever, and it was just taking a long time. And then there was this moment where suddenly we had like a window of time, and we had the financing and we had no director, and the pre-production was going to start in 6 weeks. So we started to like scramble to find a director, and we were not looking at first-time directors because it was like the resources are very limited and the timeline is very short. So like we need to find somebody who's really experienced and knows how to do this, whatever. And instead I was like, oh no, I'm going to pitch myself to direct this movie, which was like truly the most horrifying thought I've ever had. And I was like willing it to go away. But I felt like suddenly absolutely sick over the idea of somebody else like coming in and kind of telling me what the movie was. And I confess that over the 2 years, the screenwriter Ian McDonald had written many different drafts that were all like beautiful and tonally the same, not the same, you know what I mean? There was a tonal through line, but really different. And so I was also sort of like, oh, if it were up to me, I would get to go like, oh, well, I think that piece, that moment from that draft and that, and I also had been kind of harboring this wish to kind of expand the role of the runaway and to add this detail that is kind of the final sequence of the film. I think it's like one of the most fascinating details from the true story. And, getting to figure out with Ian how to make that the ending of the film felt like absolutely right and perfect. And it was kind of like I just got to get my grubby little paws on it, really.
So how did that visualization happen for you? Were you just madly scribbling notes all over your script? Was it notes on a computer? Like, how did you practically...
It did sort of just immediately take over my living room, and there were kind of like sticky notes everywhere and stuff. But it was so last minute that when I pitched myself to the producers on this Zoom, and it's one of those things where like suddenly there's 12 people that you've never met, and you're like, hello, and I truly just did not have time to like figure out how to put together like a very professional visual packet and pitch. And so I'm kind of half pitching myself in this very like ambivalent way where I keep going like, if you guys don't think that I should do it, that's totally fine. I like want to do what's right for the movie. If you don't think I'm ready, if you think it's the wrong decision, I agree. And I ended up like the visual references I like should have put together this very like polished, packet. But instead it was like on this Zoom, I would just hold up my phone to the camera on the Zoom. Because I was like, again, if I'm going to do this, like the last thing I need to be doing with my brain power is like learning how to put together a PowerPoint presentation or like printing out a bunch of packets and having them messengered and whatever. So it was like, look, either this is an idea that's interesting and I would need to just learn how to direct a movie very quickly, but or it's not. But I think it's a mistake for me to be kind of like, spending time putting together the packet because like the train is moving, babe. Like, what are we doing? And they were dumb enough to give me the job. So,
and was it a quick yes given the timeline?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, funny enough, I pitched myself, and the first one was very ambivalent, and and because I so truly was like, this is really scary and I don't know if it's the right move. And I am not a fan of totally false confidence. Like acting like things are fine when they're falling apart. I did that a lot. But acting like you'd be a fool not to hire me is insane to me. Like, I'm not a used car dealer. I want to actually like talk about this with other creative people, and be honest with them about like, here are what I think are my areas of strength. Here are my areas of deficit. Here's like what I would need and, you know, whatever. And they were basically like, can you do that again tomorrow and just seem a little more confident? And it was like the silliest thing because I was like, but now you know that I'm lying because you've told me to just do it. And I did, and then they gave me the job. It really was one of those moments where you're like, oh, this is all bullshit. We like live in a pretend world in a pretend industry because they literally told me like, fake it better. And so I did. Yeah.
That I can do. It's such an inspirational story. So then I'm just wondering, were there directors that you've worked with in the past that you reached out to for some guidance?
Well, the first person I called, funny enough, was Paul Feig. And I only say funny enough because he's known for some comedy, you know, Bridesmaids and The Heat. And you know, this is a very dark movie, but I really admire Paul as a collaborator. And I also, like, Paul is the ultimate sweetheart, like top 3 sweetest men in the industry. And some of the people that he works with are like real bulldogs. And it kind of reminded me that I'm in that dynamic, I'm not the real sweetheart. So I should probably hire some real sweethearts in case like the bulldog energy didn't vibe with everybody. So that actually helped me be like, okay, I can't just hire other bulldogs. Like, I need to have some like real sweetie pies around because I can be a kind of a steamroller, as is evidenced by the fact that I'm not shutting up.
So we're going to get to you, Nicolette. I'm just
enjoying. I'm just listening. That's what I just love listening to this one talk.
We're so in love.
We are.
So obviously we want to talk about casting, but as the director, were there other staffing decisions that came down to you?
Oh, yeah. No, there was no crew or anything. There wasn't like a line producer. There wasn't a DP. There wasn't a production designer. Like, I wasn't like wandering into something that had been set up. So, yeah, no, like the next day I was like interviewing like a casting director.
Right. And so you chose Brett Howe and Mary Venue, who we all know and love. And so, yes, let's get into a little bit about what your preconceptions were, because you were obviously very familiar with the script, 2 years, about who would be good and what transpired.
Well, I did get excited about the idea of faces that might not be as familiar to people. If anything, I was like, man, Anna Kendrick's really fucking up the vibe here. Like, because, you know, it's like the 70s and how immersive to be like, oh, it's not like I look at that person and go like, yeah, but that's that girl from that show or whatever. So I got really excited about just finding like really talented people. I really, really love really talented people.
Takes one to know one.
And I think that like it really was so dazzling to like find this cast because they're so amazing.
So why don't we start with you, Nicolette, and tell us about I want to hear about your prep for the audition and your audition experience.
Well, I think if you really think of my prep, I think about it like a month before, or no, like literally just a couple weeks before. I went to TIFF and I went that season and got to see a lot of films at TIFF. And I came back and I was feeling incredibly inspired. I was just, you know, I have some friends and my husband was there for his film. And I just remember sitting there and feeling really inspired and thinking like, I really am ready to be able to be up there. You know, I had been making self-tapes really like all summer long. I mean, forever we've all been making self-tapes, but I felt like I had been making really, really strong self-tapes and just having no bite, you know? And I was like, I came back from TIFF and I called my agent and I said, I'm ready to be at TIFF. I want to be there not just, with somebody else, but I want to be there for a film that I'm a part of. I just wanted to say that and just put that out there. And I was like, do people get callbacks anymore? Like, is that a thing? Like, is anybody watching my self-tapes? Because I know that they're good. And, a lot of times I'm up against names and recognizable people, because these days it's also really hard to get audiences to watch stuff if you don't have, names attached to it. But anyways, I said that to her. I was like, I just want to say it. I know that you can't do anything about it, but I'm just saying it. And then a week later, I got an audition for Woman of the Hour, and I immediately felt a connection to the material and to the character, and my prep for it, I just prepped the way I do with most things. I read the script, was deeply surprised that it wasn't like a rom-com or something after seeing Anna's name attached to it. Originally it was titled Rodney and Cheryl.
Yeah, and then the dating game, and it all just sounded like rom-com title.
It was like, oh my God, this is going to be so sweet. And I started reading it, and I held my breath and was completely worried for everyone and felt really deeply for these characters. And when I got to the end of it and I realized that it was based on a true story because they had the end titles, I felt physically ill. I didn't realize it was a true story. And I was like having a visceral response after realizing that this was actually true. And so I felt the weight of it and the weight of the storytelling. And so I just knew that for me, because I just look at Laura as somebody who is a friend who loved someone so much in their life and had them taken away in a really awful way. And in some ways you feel guilty that you couldn't do something about it. And so I just wanted it to be as honest and present as I could. And so anyway, fast forward, I got the callback that I had been waiting for. Thanks. Yeah. And we did a callback over Zoom, and it was just so refreshing to be able to have that interaction with somebody also who just so deeply respected what you were bringing to the table. And so I just felt really grateful that I had spoken it into the universe. And then I feel that tends to happen. I mean, that's really been my pattern with projects that have come my way. It's you just have to speak what you're hoping for and what you want, and let it come out of you so that it can find its way back to you,
Yeah, love that.
Well, and I'll just say, I think that, because it feels like the room to talk process a little bit, I could just feel Nicolette's energy even on Zoom. The self-tape was gorgeous, but in the meeting that we got to have, I could really tell that it mattered, that the material mattered to you, so there was something really special about that, and it spoke to the amount of reverence that you have for performing and for this particular material. And yeah, it was very early in my I'm I'm the director now, but I also having been on the other side of it was every person that was willing to give their energy and their time with no guarantee that it would come to anything was just it makes me emotional thinking about that, because it's so fucking hard. I know how fucking hard it is, and it asks so much of you, and it does feel surely the least that these people can do is be really present and grateful for everybody's time as they audition. But yeah, I mean, Nicolette's energy is just so beautiful. I think every single person on the crew was in love with her within 10 fucking minutes. But she also has an impossible task. Laura is an impossible character. There were things that I told Mary Vernew, for example, The Runaway. I was I don't know where this girl is, but I know we're going to find her. And I know that when the lights come on, the first question is going to be, who the fuck is that girl? And that role is kind of this high wire act, and, and it's so challenging, and Autumn is so dazzling in it. But Laura, I would want to play The Runaway. I would not want to play Laura. It is it is so thankless. It is so impossible. It is a marathon of grief in a movie where you aren't totally sure what's happening with her, and like it could have just been so one note. It could have not worked at all, and like you had to just be so open within like 2 seconds. You have to fall in love with her immediately, and then she starts flipping out, and like we aren't totally sure why. It's like it is such a like it's like a setup to fail, and so I just love you so much, and you're so talented.
I love you.
And it's true. Bravo to you for maneuvering that, because we are with you 1,000%. And I want to come back to auditioning and casting, but while we're on this train, was part of your audition scene was something you had the scene where you're actually in the audience, because that was a nail biting scene for an audience to watch.
No, that wasn't. Yeah, my audition scenes were the scene in the car where I tell my boyfriend that I know who this guy was, and then the scene with the security guard, and then like a piece of the scene with the janitor as well. I think. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, this Anna gave me my first big chance, really. Like I'd only done one film before this, and this was the biggest role that I had been given in film, and so. You really like you were the first person to like see me and let me, step into something like that. Yeah. Amen. Absolutely. I'm so grateful. And I was terrified on set, but because I felt like I knew Laura and loved her so much, I didn't know if any of it was really working. Like I didn't know if people were gonna hate me by the end of it, like, oh, shut up, you're so annoying, or like, you when you're shooting a lot of action, there's not really a lot of words, like the scene in the audience. I just had to like, it had to be the highest stakes for me, in order to feel like I was even like slightly telling the story correctly. But it's a really challenging thing because you're doing it without words, but you're like feeling. I just tried to embody as much emotion and urgency and feeling at the same time, but then trying to keep a lid on it, and thank God for Anna, because Anna's, more, you have more experience than like anybody that was on that set. And so I just felt like I could really trust her. And like, if there was ever a thing where it was like, it's even something physical where you were like, just like open your mouth, like go from closed mouth to an open mouth at one point, and that will like help tell the story. It's something, sometimes it's even just technical, but to me, I had to just do all the work of just like embodying as much of the feeling as I possibly could, and not trying, and then trusting that it was just going to show through, which is scary to do, because I certainly didn't know if it was going to work,
Well, also, can we tell the truth? Are we allowed to tell the truth? Because also, it's like there's certain things where you're like, you don't want to talk about that in public. But my mistake was there was something I didn't consider, which was that Laura needed to get angry at one point, because she is in an impossible situation, and she has all this grief and all this emotion, and she has to be like sitting on it. She has to, because that's the only way because otherwise you're hysterical and no one will listen, and no one fucking listened anyway. But I realized like, oh fuck, if she doesn't get angry, this crazy thing happened where the audience, it was like friends of mine that I was like showing early cuts to, would end up frustrated at Laura, not with Laura. And I was like, oh fuck, and there was a point where I was, adding awful. I was adding all these like tortured ADR lines, but it was so awful. And then I managed to like, it was so last minute and so like fly by night, whatever, to like, grab a couple cameras and like get a couple extra shots in the movie, whatever. And I said to Nicolette, like, I'm going to have a camera going down this hallway. You need to flip out. at this cop. Even though in the 1970s, a black woman would not have done that. But also like we're looking for emotional truths. And if I didn't do this, then the audience is weirdly left with this thing where it's like at Laura and not at the people that you should be frustrated with. And I had never asked Nicolette to get angry. Like, she's like so open and so emotional and like this, open nerve, right? And I was like, I have no idea how this is going to go. And then like, I think there was like one take where toward the end of your walk, you were like, do your fucking job. And I was like, say that at the window. And that was like the only note that I had. And we just were doing it a couple times for the camera move. And I was like, I feel it now in my body. I was fucking vibrating. I was so excited because I was like, I didn't know she could do that. It was like, oh my God, it was amazing.
But this is amazing. And I love that you say it was just a technical thing, but it was something that read to you in the camera. And I'm just imagining that it's all of your experience as an actress that you brought to bear that makes you this kind of director who has this communication style with other actors on set.
Well, I was like kind of nervous. There were times where I was like, I want to be told, like if like an angle is weird or like something isn't reading the way that you think it's reading, I want to be told that specifically. Like I do care about emotional truths, but also like we have to get it on camera, otherwise it doesn't fucking matter. And so I wasn't sure, I hire all these people. They're all wonderful. I'm obsessed with them. And then you're like, I don't know what kind of actor you're going to be. And I don't know if saying something like, actually, if you just close your mouth and then open your mouth, it's going to work. If they're like, well, that is the rudest fucking note I've ever, what, that's not like this big, tell me about my mother. Tell me about, what would Freud say? Say something. And I was so delighted that like everybody, I think that somewhere along the line, all these people have been told that we're all these like unbelievably delicate creatures who will just like poof into smoke if you say like, can you just try it a little quieter or a little faster? And I know like we're crazy people, I get it. But yeah, I was so delighted that everybody was like, yeah, man, just tell me to like move a little to the fucking left or whatever,
It's so
Especially
helpful.
when like the shot of Autumn when she's lying on her back when she wakes up in the desert and it's from the side and it goes up to reveal Rodney. I was torturing those two people. I will never be able to tell you how cold it was, how early in the morning it was. I was like, oh, they're going to die. Like, I'm killing them. I started like leaving my body because I was like, I'm committing murder. Like, this is like, I can't, like, this is crazy. And I was like, in the camera immediately, I was like, the sound we did have to replace there because I'm next to the camera going, open your eyes, look a little higher, open your mouth, big deep breath, camera move. Like, because I was like, I'm not going to torture these actors because they're going like, what's happening? Why isn't it working? Like, let's say what's happening out loud. Like, I would want that. I don't want to have to lay here on this freezing cold sand in a tank top and just keep like crying because you are unwilling to tell me to like open my mouth and then gasp for breath. So yeah, there were certain times where I was just like assuming that people would be on board and I was so happy.
Oh my God.
I was so happy.
The best though, but it was such a gift because I don't know, the thing that I've learned like even just doing in this self-taping age is like you learn a lot from watching yourself. Like you make the tape and then you go and you watch it and you're like, oh, why am I doing that with my hand? Or like if I just like look a little bit more this way, it just changes everything. And so having somebody like that with, even just the simple things like that was just so helpful because we don't ever see what it is that we're doing when we're on the set. And then also you were so affirming. Like Anna was the first person on set to come out from the other side of the camera with just tears streaming down her face. And
I thought I was such a like stoic leader, and then all the actors are like, oh, and then she'd be crying, and I was like, again? You guys were never even a scene together, so I was doing this all the time.
Yeah. Yes, but then also that you'd have somebody like in the audience scene, like we shot at the dating game for like a week maybe, but I'd be in the audience and it was a big set. That was our big, awesome set that we had. And you just hear Anna from down at the bottom, oh my God, Nicolette, your eyes, look at that. So it's just keep doing what you're doing.
I'm nothing if not shrill.
But it's just such a gift because it's helpful to just know, like it gives you confidence to just keep doing what it is that you're doing, I keep ending saying,
I want to go back to the casting a little bit because it is such an incredible cast, and I'm impressed that you led with the right people for the role. And I think there's some fear perhaps around this idea that people need to have huge social media accounts. So I know this is kind of off topic, but I'm interested to hear what you think about
Horrifying. A horrifying thought. It's funny because I have heard that and I was always like, that's not really a thing. And then like I've only heard it a couple of times, but I've now heard like 2 or 3 over the years of someone being like, yeah, like we had to hire some, because when someone says, oh, I didn't get the job because my social media following wasn't high enough, I'm always like, we don't know that. But then like, yeah, then I hear like a producer or something say it and I just want to scream. I want to scream because like, what on earth are you talking about? So yeah, no, that makes me absolutely feral.
Great. All right, so I've got to talk about Rodney and Autumn. They are both, I mean, just absolutely incredible. How did you find them? What did you put them through their paces? What made you feel confident as the actor-director that you had, or were you entirely confident that you had found the right people?
Oh, I was I was very confident. Like I was so terrified about everything, and there were in pre-production. We're telling the truth in this room. It's fine. In pre-production, I did find myself sometimes being like very influenceable because, well, it's hard because you're like, well, I mean, I should be counting on these people. I've decided to entrust them with, you know, a portion of the film that is their area of expertise. And, you know, so there was like that, you know, that cliche of a first-time director going, what do you think? But I remember saying to Zach, the DP early on about like casting, I was like, oh, no, nobody can tell me shit. Like you feel really strongly about actors. And I first of all, tortured Mary Verneau, because every single part, I was like, I know I've said this before, and I know that I've said that I'll stop saying it, but whoever plays this part has to be amazing. Because like George Eliot, the janitor, like the security guard, like everybody had to be amazing. If you had one line and it really rang false, then suddenly like, hey, we're watching a movie. Like, oh, okay, there's the key light, and okay, especially because we're trying to make a big epic 70, like a period piece on like a very small budget and short timeline, and it could get really like, oh no, we're doing like some pretending. So I was really annoying. But I think performance is the only thing that matters. And I've talked to like production designers and DPs about this because I think that's true. I think that you can have the best cinematography that's ever been committed to film, and if the performances are shit, it doesn't matter. You did it for nothing. Yeah, that's fucking right. And you can have great performances and really mediocre production design or costume design, and you can overcome that. So yeah, I mean, I know I'm in the right room, but like, I would say that to anybody. What was the question? I won't shut up.
No, it's just about casting, because I think you're right. The film is really tight.
Yes. So Danny, I had seen in Station 11, and I don't know about you guys, but I feel like there are moments where someone comes on screen and before they've even said a line, you're like, that person is fucking great. You know, they're so grounded and they're so confident, and like way before you kind of find out that character is like sinister, I was like, that's Rodney. Like, I think the hardest thing to do for me as an actor is to trust yourself and to be still. Like, that is such an act of trust, to know like I'm interesting even when I'm not doing the whole tap dancing thing that I want to do all the time. And he could really do that. And that is a really powerful skill. So almost immediately I knew I wanted him, and he was in the middle of nowhere, as in like we couldn't even manage to get on a phone call because there was no reception shooting. And I was sort of like, I think if he's not available, like I don't think I have a movie. Like I knew it had to be him. And I basically, and I've said this once before, but I feel like I need to check that apparently, I think Danny, he was shooting with Russell Crowe and said, like, I'd have to go straight into this movie. I'm really exhausted, and that Russell Crowe was like, oh yeah, but I like Anna Kendrick. She's smart. You should do it. So I owe him a fruit basket. Yeah. And then Autumn, Autumn was like a miracle. She was the second self-tape that I saw because it was alphabetical. And I just started screaming, and I was so relieved that I was like, oh, okay, so at least there's an option. And then a lot of really talented people gave really great performances, but no one touched her in that last scene. And when we were shooting that final scene, as we were like I was about to put her in that sand and have her give this performance, the only thing I said to her was, you were the only person that understood this scene. Because I was like, I don't need to tell you to do anything. Like, you already know what to do. And it's her first movie. She sent a tape from Chicago, but like all that power is already inside of her. And it's like, it was like me wanting to say, like, I'm coming from the future. You can trust yourself. You nailed it. And that's like all you want to be able to do when you're performing is go like, did I crush it? Because if I know that at the end of the day I got it, then I can do it, So like having that trust, I feel like, is important.
And bravo to you for being so supportive. That scene is so chilling. It really is, indomitable, unforgettable, just brilliant. I want to talk to you a little bit before we have to let you go about your performance, because there are also some moments where I was like behind a cushion screaming. And I think one of them, and there were also some really fun, I know it's not a comedy, but there were also really fun moments in the movie. But first of all, I want to talk to you about the parking lot scene, because that is incredible.
Yeah.
I was there that day, by the way. I was watching, and it was
because I called you too early, and I was like almost in tears because I was like, oh no. Oh, no.
You're always so worried.
No.
It was so freezing. It was like crazy cold in Vancouver. So she was always concerned for our frozen health, our unfrozen health. No, but it was I just wanted to chime in and say it was just as chilling in person as it is on the screen. I mean, it was like watching it, we were like, holy shit, this is something. This is really fucking scary.
It was really fun to shoot. Yeah. It's funny because even there's I don't know about y'all, but sometimes when I'm about to give a performance, well, I say about to, but like in the months leading up, the weeks leading up, the hour leading up, the moments leading up, I know that I'm going to try something and I don't want to say it because it's like all in naming it, I'll just destroy it, And I remember there was like something in the scene that was like, it feels like I would say something here and we don't know what it is. And it was this little line where I say, yeah, I'm not going anywhere with you. And it was a line that I pitched, and one of my producers was sort of like, yeah, but how does it work and whatever. And I felt myself about to kind of like audition it for her. And I went, let me just try it, and I know that I'm in the position where I get to do that. And I'm in the position where I get to do that as an actor. Like, and I know that's a privileged position. But like, it was like, I think I can do this in a way where it's like, I'm trying to be strong, but I'm so fucking terrified. And where it doesn't read like, I'm not going anywhere with you, but cause like, that's a nightmare. It's interesting, like holding all of that tension and wanting to find your voice, and like that line especially, because I was the one that pitched it, and I was like, I think I can perform it better than I can write it. It's not a great piece of writing. It was just like something that I was like, I should say something there. It's not a great piece of writing, but I was like, but I know I can make it work, and that's a really fun thing about acting, where you're like, I can try something and like I know how it's gonna work, so like let me try it. Funny enough, there was a moment where I did the first take of that whole sequence, and I was like, that wasn't quite right. And I think that I felt so connected to the material, and obviously like the weight of these very real things are so horrific to me and matter to me and mean a lot to me. And like also I'm then thinking about a million things and my brain won't kind of like shut off and let me drop into my body. And I had to actually kind of stand there and like walk in kind of a figure eight and really like do some like breath work. Not that I know how to do breath work, but to just kind of like, and we were talking about this like a moment ago, but it's like, I think it's something I picked up from another actor at one point in my career where I watched her in a moment where like there were like 100 extras standing around and whatever. And it was kind of like a moment for her and just kind of unapologetically like really just like let herself do like a bunch of breath work. And it made me feel like, what a badass. Like there's just no embarrassment and I'm taking up my space because this is my space. And like, it's everybody else's set, like camera has the set, lighting has the set. And then it's like, but I have my body, I have my breath. And like, I'm not going to be embarrassed or like hide my process. Cause like, you don't have to hide that you're like moving a light. So I don't have to hide that like, I need to get myself back into my body. And, yeah, it was like really a weird moment where I was like, I've never had to do this as a director before. So, I was very grateful that we were working with like a very professional Vancouver crew. And for that one moment, I could just be like, I need to, drop back into myself.
That's really great advice for everybody on set, I think, to take that time to center and use breath work. Yeah.
No, I'm not even joking. Like, it's a game. Like, it makes you feel really confident when you do it, too. It's weird. Like, I've had to turn to it before, but it was the only point in this movie. But, like, it's also, like, it gives people the signal that they kind of need to give you your space while also knowing, like, if I just need to adjust your mic, I can do it really quickly. Like, and it just makes you feel like, yeah, this is my time, this is my space. It's magical.
Yes. And I also think as an audience of actors, probably a lot of us in here sort of commiserate with a lot of the experience that Cheryl has. And of course, one of the cringiest scenes is the casting director, the audition with the casting directors. I mean, I'm sure...
The thing about nudity, that's lifted verbatim from a thing that happened to me when I was 19. I'm sure they're fine. Yeah.
It's so gross.
I was like,
So it was all just emotion memory.
well, because I didn't even tell them. I just asked those two guys. They were so great. And I was like, will you just indulge me? I probably will cut it, but whatever. And then it ended up being like one of the first laughs of the movie. So... yeah.
So great. And all of your relationships throughout the movie, they're just, you said it earlier, there wasn't a fake, like even the nod to the waitress that she shouldn't serve you another drink.
Yes, the waitress. She has one line. She's fucking amazing. And I changed it on her, poor thing, because the whole scene was different until the night before. And I like did rewrites the night before because there was supposed to be this whole thing where she like knocked over a glass and Rodney got angry with her and whatever. And then I was like, I want to do this totally different thing. And I didn't know if she'd like understand the subtlety of it or whatever, but I also think that like women are like, no, I know what to do. So
it was a lovely moment. Okay, last scene I really want to talk to you about. Oh, also just the relationships, the makeup ladies. Amazing.
I just like, can we just talk about actors? Yeah. I just want to talk about actors. I could like, I'm like a pig in shit right now. Yeah.
But it was also really fascinating the way that pivotal moment during the story where you take control of what your episode of this game show is going to look like. Can you talk to us about the performance of what she was like before and then gaining her power?
Yeah. So I was nervous about that turn because I was worried it would come across a little bit convenient, one note, whatever. And it was really when I realized that the purpose of that section is about her joy and her like playfulness that matters. Cause like some of the stuff about like, oh, he was an astronomer, not an astrologer, like that it was like, oh, but I need to throw that away because the point is that I'm having the best time and she's never having the best time because she's trying to follow the rules and she's trying to fawn and do all these things. And so that is when the performance opened up to me a lot more because I could really like go for it in terms of how playful to be. And then it's really like heartbreaking to know that she's like rebelled in this world that refuses to let her have her power. and it works. And then she ends up at the tiki bar, like really riding this high. And you're like, girl, no. Like, it's exactly the thing that is putting her in danger. But it was kind of fun to play against that because, like, the viewer is going to know she's walking right into the lion's den. But I'm just like having the best time. And I'm not even really there to fall in love. I'm just there to have my moment. And it's like, oh no, there's a whole third act. Oh no.
I wish we had more time to dig into all of these things with both of you, but sadly we have come to the end of our time. Is there one last piece of advice or anything you'd like to share with our audience before we leave?
Well, the only thing before the advice piece, like the one small piece I just wanted to add, because we're talking about Anna's performance in this film. You know, as the director, we've been just focusing on this being her first directorial debut, and I just think your performance is just so spectacular in this. And it's just, and if you had the chance to see her on set, I mean, this woman was literally running everything. People coming up to her questions, and she's giving notes, and she's literally half in costume, or like you have her Uggs on in her dress, and she's running over here looking. I mean, the amount of work that it took to direct this film was just, it was, I mean, incredible. But then because I didn't have any scenes with you other than the dating game, I just was like, I was so blown away. And it was so cool to watch her when we were shooting the dating game stuff, just how much, I mean, it was like you had seconds, you'd be like, action, and then you're bachelor now. I mean, but then like a flawless performance. So I just think you just have such a gift with it just coming out so naturally and so authentically, and we just care about you. And I just
this is why I hired you.
Yeah, that's it. Flattery. But yeah, I just wanted to comment on that because I do get to talk a lot about working with her as a director, but I just am so in awe of you as an actor.
That's so sweet. I think like I'm trying to think of like, well, what did I learn? Like, I think I was also hoping that like in the edit I would learn like a bunch of secrets, and I was sort of like, damn it. Like it's a lot of it is just like, oh, you couldn't possibly predict like why that take gets you. Like, I remember telling you, I was like, if I were Nicolette and I knew some of the reasons why like I had to choose that take, I would set me on fire. Cause like sometimes the security guard would like, the way he would like reach for the button on the phone would seem a little bit more like, all right, I'm really gonna help you. And that's the whole trick of that section, right? So like we would have to choose that take. And you know, it's like you want it to be because you're whatever, so that sucks. But the casting process definitely taught me everyone is so much more interesting than they realize. And like, it really is like you can do 25% less because you're already so interesting. Like that was the thing that I wanted to say to every single actor was like, no, you're already super interesting. Like you can do less and less and less. And if you're interested, the one thing that I felt like, oh, that's really good to know when I was in the edit was when this is what I'm talking about, is when you're in like a true profile or like a 3/4 where you can really only see one eye, I really was like, oh, I honestly have to think of this as like almost a size bigger than it is. Like if it's a close-up, think of it as a medium. Like the choice has to be a little more readable, because when you don't have access to both eyes, like I couldn't believe the one, like I almost always could tell my editor, it's going to be take 3, it's going to be take 2, like for my own performance. But the only time I was wrong was like when I was in a true profile. And it was always the take where I thought I did a little too much on that take. Like when I'm on the phone with my agent and I'm like, Helen, I can barely afford rent, whatever. I was doing that take thinking I've gone a little too far. But because we don't have access to my face as much, my voice has to be doing a lot more and like generating the emotion of it. It's almost like a fucking voiceover. So that was really interesting to me. Sorry, that's a very specific thing, but how interesting.
Keep going. I want to take that.
Can't we stay for another half hour? Thank you so much for coming and sharing this. Really is a brilliant film. Congratulations.
Thank you guys so much for coming.